Was education limited outside the colonial church? Imagine living in a time when the only way to learn was through the church. During the colonial era in Latin America, this was often the case. The Catholic Church was the main force behind education. It built schools, universities, and missions, and it controlled what was taught. Outside of these church-run institutions, there was very little formal education available. Most of the education for the general population was informal or practical. People learned trades, farming, or local crafts from family members or community elders. These skills were passed down through generations, but there were no large schools or universities for common folk. The church's influence meant that education was mostly about religious teachings and maintaining colonial authority. Church-run schools focused on teaching Latin and Catholic doctrine. They also taught reading and writing, but mainly in Spanish and Latin. Indigenous and African populations had limited access to these schools. When they did attend, it was often to be converted or to learn basic skills, not for broad learning. The church's goal was to spread Christianity and reinforce Spanish culture. Higher education was mostly reserved for the clergy and colonial elites. Universities like the University of San Marcos in Lima and the University of Santo Tomas in Mexico were founded by the church. These institutions focused on theology, classical studies, and law. Ordinary people had no access to this level of education. The church also influenced language use. Spanish and Latin were promoted, while many indigenous languages were suppressed or written down by missionaries for evangelization. This limited the spread of local languages and knowledge. In summary, outside the church, education was minimal and mostly informal. The church's control kept formal learning limited to a small group of clergy and elites. It shaped the culture and social hierarchy, making education a tool for religious and colonial control. Most people, especially indigenous and African populations, had little opportunity for formal education during the colonial era.